December 24th, 1944. The French Alps stretched beneath a canopy of stars so bright they seemed frozen in the thin mountain air. At 9,000 feet above the Vercors Plateau, the twin engines of a Douglas C-47 Skytrain carved through the darkness with mechanical precision. Inside the vibrating fuselage, Lieutenant Charles Donovan adjusted his oxygen mask and checked his chronometer for the third time in 2 minutes. The altimeter needle trembled at 850 feet above ground level. Below him lay nothing but shadow and stone. The radio crackled with static before delivering its message in measured tones. Eureka beacon active. Proceed to drop zone Delta. Donovan pressed his face against the small porthole window. Somewhere in that vast darkness, men were waiting. Men who had not seen Allied supplies in 3 months. Men whose survival depended entirely on what his aircraft carried in its belly that Christmas Eve. The wind howled against the aluminum skin of the fuselage with the sound of steel dragged across concrete. Each gust threatened to throw the heavily loaded transport off course. The pilot's voice came through the intercom, calm and professional despite the circumstances. "Cargo officer, we're beginning our approach. Weather conditions are marginal, but within operational parameters." Donovan nodded into the darkness, knowing that marginal meant something entirely different at night, in winter, over terrain that had claimed more aircraft than enemy fire. The Christmas mission, as it would later be known in declassified OSS files, represented something unprecedented in the annals of wartime logistics. Never before had Allied command attempted precision airdrops in alpine conditions during winter weather. The very concept seemed to violate every principle of safe aviation practice established since the Wright brothers first left the ground at Kitty Hawk 4 decades earlier. In the comfortable briefing rooms of Allied headquarters, staff officers had examined the weather reports with growing skepticism. Wind speeds of 40 knots. Visibility reduced to less than 300 meters. Cloud cover at 6,000 feet with icing conditions predicted throughout the operational altitude band. The meteorological summary concluded with words that would have ended any conventional mission before it began. Air resupply operations in the target area are not recommended under current atmospheric conditions. German intelligence officers, monitoring Allied radio traffic from their stations in Lyon and Grenoble, had reached similar conclusions. Their assessment reports, discovered years later in Wehrmacht archives, revealed a fascinating glimpse into enemy thinking. The Americans will not risk transport aircraft in the mountains during winter storms, one Luftwaffe analyst had written. Their doctrine prioritizes aircraft preservation over tactical resupply. We can expect no significant enemy air activity in the Vercors sector until spring weather patterns stabilize. How wrong they were. How catastrophically, completely wrong. The Douglas C-47 Skytrain had earned its reputation as the workhorse of Allied logistics through sheer mechanical reliability rather than sophisticated design. Built by Douglas Aircraft Company in Santa Monica, California, each aircraft represented the convergence of American industrial capacity with urgent military necessity. Twin Pratt & Whitney R-1830 radial engines, each producing 1,200 horsepower, drove Hamilton Standard propellers that could pull 26,000 pounds of aircraft and cargo through conditions that would ground more advanced machines. But tonight's mission demanded more than mechanical reliability. Operation Christmas Box, as the planners had designated it, required technological innovation that pushed the boundaries of 1944 aviation science. Each participating C-47 had been retrofitted with the Rebecca Eureka navigation system, a revolutionary electronic beacon arrangement that allowed aircraft to locate specific ground positions with unprecedented accuracy. The Rebecca component, mounted in the aircraft, functioned as both transmitter and receiver. On the ground, French resistance fighters operated the Eureka beacon, a suitcase-sized radio transmitter that broadcast a distinctive signal pattern. When the aircraft's Rebecca system detected the Eureka transmission, it displayed bearing and distance information on a cathode ray tube screen, creating what amounted to an invisible pathway through the darkness. Lieutenant Donovan had spent weeks studying the technical manuals for this equipment. The Rebecca Eureka system operated on frequencies between 200 and 900 megahertz, well outside the range of German radio intercept capabilities. More importantly, the beacon signal appeared identical to atmospheric interference on enemy monitoring equipment. Unless German technicians knew exactly what to look for, The electronic bridge between aircraft and ground would remain invisible. The cargo manifest for this single flight told the story of desperate Allied priorities in occupied France. 67 individual containers, each measuring 4 feet in length and weighing exactly 110 pounds, filled every available inch of cargo space. The loading had been accomplished with mathematical precision to maintain proper weight distribution and center of gravity throughout the flight profile. Container numbers 1 through 15 held medical supplies that would determine life or death for wounded resistance fighters. Penicillin, discovered by Alexander Fleming but refined into battlefield medicine by American pharmaceutical companies, occupied specially cushioned compartments designed to prevent crystallization during high-altitude transport. Morphine syrettes, individually sealed and marked with batch numbers from manufacturing plants in New Jersey and Ohio, provided portable pain relief for men who might not see proper medical facilities for months. Military radios filled containers 16 through 32. Each SCR-300 transceiver represented a technological leap that most civilian engineers would not comprehend for another decade. Frequency modulation, rather than the amplitude modulation used in commercial broadcasting, provided clear communication, even when enemy jamming attempted to disrupt Allied coordination. Waterproofed battery packs, manufactured specifically for sub-zero alpine conditions, ensured that these radios would function when French fighters needed them most. The remaining containers carried what OSS planners euphemistically termed special materials, British-manufactured plastic explosives, more stable and powerful than traditional dynamite, could destroy German supply convoys with surgical precision. Electric detonators, each one hand-assembled by British ordnance specialists, transformed ordinary soldiers into sabotage experts capable of disrupting enemy transportation networks across hundreds of square miles. Perhaps most intriguingly, 12 containers held complete German Wehrmacht uniforms, procured through intelligence channels that remained classified even decades after the war's end. These garments, indistinguishable from authentic German issue, would allow Allied operatives to move freely through occupied territory. Every button, every insignia, every thread had been manufactured to match German military specifications exactly. The intelligence value of such disguises extended far beyond simple infiltration. Men wearing these uniforms could gather information, document German defensive positions, and blend seamlessly into the complex social fabric of military occupation. As the C-47 approached its target area, the first indication of trouble came through the Rebecca Eureka display screen. The signal that should have guided them directly to Drop Zone Delta appeared intermittently, flickering like a dying light bulb before vanishing entirely for minutes at a time. Donovan tapped the screen housing gently, hoping to restore stable reception through percussive maintenance, the universal repair technique favored by military personnel worldwide. The aircraft's radio operator, Staff Sergeant Michael O'Brien, hunched over his equipment with the focused intensity of a man whose training had prepared him for exactly this scenario. German jamming techniques had evolved throughout 1944, becoming increasingly sophisticated as Wehrmacht communications specialists learned to disrupt Allied electronic warfare capabilities. O'Brien adjusted frequency settings methodically, searching for the clear channel that would restore contact with ground forces. Signal strength is fluctuating between 2 and 7 on the indicator, O'Brien reported. Possible enemy interference, but atmospheric conditions could be causing natural attenuation. The technical language masked a dangerous reality. Without reliable beacon guidance, precision airdrop operations became exercises in educated guesswork. Containers might land anywhere within a radius of several miles, making recovery by friendly forces unlikely and capture by German patrols almost inevitable. Captain Robert Mitchell, the aircraft commander, had accumulated over 800 hours of C-47 flight time since joining the European Theatre of Operations. His logbook recorded missions from D-Day supply drops over Normandy to emergency medical evacuations from forward airfields in Belgium. Tonight's flight, however, presented challenges unlike anything in his previous experience. Flying at minimum safe altitude over mountainous terrain, in weather conditions that civilian pilots would consider suicidal, while attempting to locate a target area smaller than a football field. The altimeter showed 750 feet above ground level when the first containers left the aircraft. Donovan had calculated drop timing based on aircraft ground speed, wind velocity, and parachute descent rates. Each variable carried potential error margins that could multiply exponentially in actual combat conditions. Too early, and supplies would land in German-controlled valleys. Too late, and they would impact rocky slopes where recovery would be impossible. 2 containers separated from their parachutes during descent, becoming ballistic projectiles that struck mountain granite with impacts that registered on seismic monitoring equipment miles away. The distinctive thump of high-explosive munitions detonating against stone echoed through valley systems, announcing to anyone within hearing range that Allied aircraft operated overhead. German observation posts, positioned strategically throughout the Alpine region, would certainly report unusual activity to higher headquarters within hours. Yet the mission continued. Captain Mitchell maintained course and altitude while his crew prepared additional container drops. The mathematical precision required for successful airborne resupply operations left no room for hesitation or second thoughts. Either the mission succeeded according to plan, or it failed completely. Military logistics recognized no middle ground between success and disaster. Ice formation on the aircraft's wings became visible through observation windows as ambient temperature dropped below freezing. The C-47's de-icing equipment, originally designed for high-altitude operations rather than prolonged mountain flying, struggled to maintain clear airfoil surfaces. Mitchell increased engine power slightly to compensate for the additional drag imposed by ice accumulation, knowing that every adjustment brought the aircraft closer to critical performance limitations. "If the mountains don't kill us, the weather will," Sergeant O'Brien muttered into his microphone, unaware that his words were being recorded by automatic flight documentation equipment. Those recordings, preserved in National Archives collections for decades after the war's end, provide authentic insight into the psychological pressure faced by aircrews conducting operations beyond normal safety parameters. The second attempt at container delivery proved more successful than the first. O'Brien had located a secondary frequency that provided clearer reception from ground-based beacon equipment. The Eureka signal, broadcast from a snow-covered clearing 8 miles southeast of their original target, appeared steady and strong on the Rebecca display screen. French resistance fighters, operating equipment salvaged from crashed German aircraft and modified using civilian radio components, had established their backup navigation beacon using pure improvisation and mechanical ingenuity. At exactly 0213 hours Greenwich Mean Time, Lieutenant Donovan authorized the release of 34 containers in a carefully timed sequence that lasted 47 seconds. Each parachute deployed according to specifications developed by Army Air Force's equipment specialists, creating a descending pattern visible from the aircraft as white silk circles against black mountain terrain. Magnesium flares, ignited by ground personnel to confirm successful container recovery, provided brief illumination that transformed the landscape into a scene resembling daylight photography. The precision achieved during this second drop phase astonished even experienced aircrew members. Post-mission analysis, conducted using aerial reconnaissance photographs taken days later, revealed that 29 of 34 containers had landed within a 200-meter radius of the intended target point. Under ideal daytime conditions, with unlimited visibility and no wind, such accuracy would have been considered excellent. Achieved during nighttime mountain operations in winter weather, it represented a standard of operational performance that redefined capabilities for airborne logistics. German intelligence reports, intercepted and decoded by Allied cryptographic specialists at Bletchley Park, revealed enemy bewilderment at the precision of Christmas Eve resupply operations. Luftwaffe analysts had assumed that Allied transport aircraft would scatter supplies across wide geographical areas, making systematic recovery impossible. Instead, concentrated delivery patterns suggested navigation capabilities that German technical intelligence had not anticipated in American equipment inventories. Throughout the following 48 hours, 7 additional C-47 aircraft repeated the route between Allied air bases in liberated France and drop zones scattered across the Vercors Plateau. Each mission refined techniques developed during that first Christmas Eve flight. Radio operators established standardized communication protocols that reduced electronic signature detection risks. Pilots developed flight procedures that minimized aircraft exposure time over enemy-controlled territory while maximizing delivery accuracy. The cumulative results exceeded all expectations established during mission planning phases. 59 containers from a total of 67 deployed reached French resistance forces intact and recoverable. Statistical analysis revealed an average delivery error radius of 143 meters, a figure that compared favorably with peacetime training exercises conducted under optimal conditions. More significantly, no aircraft had been lost to enemy action or mechanical failure, despite operating in weather conditions that had grounded all German air operations in the same geographical area. OSS headquarters in London received mission completion reports with a mixture of satisfaction and surprise. Radio messages from ground operatives confirmed successful receipt of medical supplies that had already saved lives among wounded resistance fighters. Belgian and French sabotage specialists reported that British plastic explosives delivered during Christmas operations had enabled destruction of 3 major German supply convoys and 2 railway bridges critical to Wehrmacht logistics in southeastern France. The intelligence value of captured German uniforms became apparent within weeks of successful delivery. Allied operatives, disguised as German personnel, had infiltrated enemy installations and documented defensive preparations that revealed significant weaknesses in German Alpine fortification systems. Photographs, sketches, and written reports provided targeting information that would prove invaluable during final Allied offensives in the European theater. Perhaps most importantly, the success of Operation Christmas Box demonstrated that electronic navigation systems could overcome geographical and meteorological obstacles that had previously made precision operations impossible. The Rebecca-Eureka beacon arrangement, originally developed as an experimental technology with limited battlefield applications, had evolved into a reliable tool for tactical coordination between air and ground forces. Captain Mitchell's flight log entry for December 24, 1944, consisted of a single laconic sentence that revealed nothing of the mission's significance. Night cargo drop, Alpine region, weather marginal, visibility poor, mission completed as briefed. Military understatement concealed what aviation historians would later recognize as a pivotal moment in the development of precision logistics operations. Lieutenant Donovan's technical report, filed with OSS headquarters 3 days after the mission, provided more detailed analysis. Electronic navigation equipment performed within acceptable parameters despite adverse atmospheric conditions. Cargo delivery accuracy exceeded planning estimates by significant margins. Recommend expansion of beacon-guided operations for subsequent mountain resupply missions. The engineering implications of successful Christmas operations extended far beyond immediate tactical applications. American aircraft manufacturers, provided with performance data from Alpine missions, began developing improved navigation systems that incorporated lessons learned during winter operations. Radio frequency allocation specialists revised standard operating procedures to minimize electronic interference from enemy jamming attempts. Parachute designers modified container deployment mechanisms to improve accuracy under high wind conditions. German technical intelligence, meanwhile, struggled to comprehend how Allied forces had achieved navigation precision that surpassed capabilities of Luftwaffe equipment. Captured RAF and USAAF aircrews, interrogated by Wehrmacht intelligence specialists, provided no information regarding electronic navigation systems. The security classification level surrounding Rebecca-Eureka technology ensured that aircrew personnel possessed only operational knowledge necessary for mission completion, never technical specifications that could compromise system effectiveness if disclosed under interrogation. By January 1945, German situation reports noted a dramatic increase in partisan activity throughout Alpine regions that had previously been considered secure from large-scale resistance operations. Sabotage incidents, previously limited to minor harassment of German supply convoys, escalated to coordinated attacks that disrupted Wehrmacht logistics across entire divisional areas. French and Belgian resistance fighters, equipped with modern radios and adequate medical supplies, had evolved from scattered guerrilla bands into organized military units, capable of sustained operations against enemy installations. The psychological impact of successful resupply operations proved equally significant. German garrison forces, isolated in mountain positions during winter months, began reporting increased partisan activity with undertones of concern that suggested eroding confidence in Wehrmacht defensive capabilities. Allied intelligence specialists, analyzing intercepted German communications, detected references to ghost aircraft that appeared and disappeared without warning. delivering supplies to resistance forces previously considered cut off from Allied support. Wehrmacht commanders, facing supply difficulties of their own due to Allied bombing of transportation networks, found themselves competing with well-equipped partisan forces for control of rural areas that had been securely occupied for years. The strategic balance in southeastern France began shifting as resistance fighters, armed with modern weapons and supplied through precision airdrops, challenged German authority with increasing effectiveness. The industrial capacity that made Operation Christmas Box possible reflected deeper transformations in American manufacturing that had occurred throughout the war years. Douglas Aircraft Company, producing C-47 transports at unprecedented rates, had revolutionized assembly line techniques to meet military production quotas. Each aircraft represented the coordination of thousands of individual components manufactured across dozens of American cities by workers who understood that their precision and dedication directly influenced combat outcomes thousands of miles away. Radio manufacturing plants in New Jersey and Ohio had converted civilian production lines to military specifications virtually overnight, creating communications equipment that surpassed German technology in reliability and performance. The SCR-300 transceivers delivered to French resistance forces incorporated electronic innovations that would define commercial radio development for decades after the war's end. Frequency modulation, waterproofing techniques, and battery conservation systems developed for military applications would eventually appear in civilian products throughout the 1950s and 1960s. Even more remarkably, the pharmaceutical industry had transformed medical compounds discovered in university laboratories into battlefield medicines that saved lives under conditions never anticipated by original researchers. Penicillin, mass-produced using fermentation techniques developed specifically for military requirements, represented the convergence of pure scientific research with industrial manufacturing capability. The same laboratories that had once focused on civilian medical applications now dedicated their resources to keeping Allied soldiers alive and operational under combat conditions. The precision required for successful airborne delivery operations demanded manufacturing tolerances that challenged American industrial capabilities. Parachutes, radio equipment, medical supplies, and explosive devices all required performance specifications that left no margin for error. A defective parachute meant lost supplies and potentially compromised resistance operations. A failed radio meant broken communication links that could result in capture or death for Allied operatives. A degraded medical supply meant wounded fighters who might not survive to see liberation. Quality control procedures, implemented throughout the American defense industry, ensured that equipment delivered to resistance forces would function properly under conditions more demanding than any civilian application. Temperature extremes, humidity variations, physical shock during parachute landing, and extended storage in improvised hiding places all tested materials and manufacturing processes to their absolute limits. The men who received that Christmas Eve airdrop would later describe the moment when Allied containers began appearing in their mountain clearing as a transformation that bordered on the miraculous. Jean-Baptiste Moreau, a resistance fighter whose post-war memoir provided detailed accounts of wartime operations, wrote, "We heard the engines first. Then we saw the parachutes like white flowers blooming against the night sky. In those containers was everything we needed to become soldiers instead of hunted men." Radio equipment enabled coordination between resistance groups that had operated independently for months. Medical supplies saved lives that would have been lost to infections and untreated wounds. Weapons and explosives provided capabilities that transformed harassment operations into serious threats to German military effectiveness. Perhaps most importantly, the psychological impact of receiving sophisticated Allied equipment convinced resistance fighters that their efforts were valued and supported by forces capable of ultimate victory. German interrogation reports, discovered in Wehrmacht archives decades after the war's end, revealed enemy frustration with the improved capabilities of French resistance forces following winter resupply operations. Captured partisans carried equipment that German intelligence specialists had not expected to find in rural resistance groups. Radio intercept stations detected coordination between resistance cells that suggested command and control systems approaching conventional military standards. Wehrmacht security forces, previously confident in their ability to control rural populations through intimidation and periodic operations against suspected resistance supporters, found themselves facing opponents equipped with modern communications equipment and adequate supplies of weapons and explosives. The strategic initiative in southeastern France began shifting as German forces discovered that maintaining control required resources and attention that Wehrmacht commanders could not spare from other threatened areas. The success of precision airborne resupply operations convinced Allied planners that electronic navigation systems represented a fundamental advancement in tactical capabilities. Rebecca Eureka beacon technology, proven effective under the most challenging operational conditions, became standard equipment for special operations aircraft throughout the European theater. Training programs, established to familiarize aircrew personnel with electronic navigation procedures, created expertise that would prove invaluable during final offensive operations as Allied forces approached German borders. The broader implications of technological innovation under combat pressure extended beyond immediate military applications. Electronic systems, developed to meet urgent battlefield requirements, incorporated design principles that would influence civilian technology development throughout the post-war era. Radar, radio navigation, electronic communication, and precision manufacturing techniques all evolved rapidly under the demands of wartime necessity. American universities, working in partnership with defense contractors, accelerated research programs that might have required decades to complete under peacetime conditions. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Stanford University, and dozens of smaller institutions dedicated their resources to solving technical problems that demanded immediate solutions. Graduate students and faculty members found themselves designing equipment that would be tested in combat within months of leaving university laboratories. The integration of academic research with industrial manufacturing created innovation cycles that compressed normal development timelines from years to months. Ideas conceived in university research facilities moved through prototype development, testing, manufacturing, and battlefield deployment with speed that amazed both participants and observers. The pressure of combat created an environment where theoretical research met practical application under conditions that eliminated all non-essential procedures and bureaucratic delays. Corporate research laboratories, freed from normal profit considerations and competitive restrictions, shared information and resources to solve common problems that affected multiple manufacturers. The distinction between competing companies became irrelevant when survival of democratic civilization depended on technical superiority over enemies who possessed their own impressive technological capabilities. Lieutenant Donovan, reflecting years later on his role in Operation Christmas Box, emphasized the collective nature of technological achievement rather than individual contributions. "None of us invented anything," he observed in interviews conducted for military historical records. "We just took existing technology and used it in ways that nobody had tried before. The real innovation was organizational. We learned how to coordinate radio navigation, precision manufacturing, tactical planning, and aircrew training into a system that worked reliably under impossible conditions. The transformation of experimental technology into reliable operational capability demonstrated American industrial adaptability under emergency conditions." The same manufacturing plants that had produced civilian automobiles, radios, and pharmaceuticals before Pearl Harbor had evolved into sophisticated defense contractors capable of meeting military specifications that exceeded anything attempted in peacetime production. Worker training programs, implemented throughout defense industries, created technical expertise that would benefit American manufacturing for decades after military contracts ended. Precision machining, quality control, electronic assembly, and materials testing skills developed for military applications provided foundations for post-war industrial expansion that established American technological leadership in emerging civilian markets. The Christmas mission represented more than successful completion of a difficult supply operation. It demonstrated that American technological and industrial capabilities, properly coordinated and applied with determination, could overcome obstacles that seemed insurmountable. The same combination of engineering innovation, manufacturing excellence, and operational courage would prove decisive in countless subsequent operations that brought Allied victory closer to reality. German technical intelligence reports, analyzed by Allied cryptographers throughout 1945, revealed enemy awareness that American military capabilities had evolved beyond German expectations. References to precision night operations, electronic navigation superiority, and unprecedented supply accuracy appeared in Wehrmacht situation reports with increasing frequency. German commanders, facing opposition that possessed technological advantages they could not match, began adapting defensive strategies that acknowledged American technical superiority in specialized operations. The strategic implications extended beyond immediate tactical advantages. Allied command authorities, recognizing that technological innovation provided decisive advantages over enemy forces, allocated increasing resources to research and development programs that accelerated advancement in electronic systems, precision manufacturing, and operational coordination. The success of individual missions like Operation Christmas Box convinced military planners that investment in technology development produced battlefield advantages that justified any expense. By spring 1945, resistance forces throughout occupied Europe operated communication networks and supply systems that approached conventional military standards. The precision delivery capabilities demonstrated during Christmas operations had been refined and expanded to support major operational requirements. French resistance fighters, equipped with modern weapons and adequate supplies, participated directly in final Allied offensives that liberated their homeland. The men who participated in Operation Christmas Box dispersed to various assignments as the war approached its conclusion, carrying with them technical knowledge and operational experience that would influence military aviation for decades. Captain Mitchell continued flying transport operations until Germany's surrender, accumulating additional experience with electronic navigation systems that prepared him for post-war career in commercial aviation. Lieutenant Donovan transferred to Pacific Theater operations, applying lessons learned in Alpine operations to island warfare that demanded similar precision under challenging conditions. Staff Sergeant O'Brien, the radio operator whose electronic warfare expertise proved crucial during Christmas operations, remained in military service after the war's end, becoming an instructor in communication systems that incorporated technological innovations developed during combat operations. His teaching influenced generations of military communications specialists who carried forward the integration of electronic systems with tactical operations. The Douglas C-47 aircraft that carried supplies to French resistance fighters on Christmas Eve 1944 continued operational service well into the 1950s, accumulating thousands of additional flight hours in post-war military and civilian applications. The reliability demonstrated during Alpine operations confirmed design excellence that made the C-47 one of the most successful aircraft in aviation history. Operation Christmas Box disappeared from official records within months of Germany's surrender, classified among numerous special operations that remained secret for decades. The participants received no medals, no public recognition, no acknowledgement of their contribution to Allied victory. Military security regulations prevented disclosure of electronic navigation capabilities that provided strategic advantages in potential future conflicts. Yet the technological and operational innovations proven during that Christmas Eve mission influenced military aviation throughout the Cold War era and beyond. Electronic navigation systems, precision airdrop techniques, and coordination between air and ground forces all evolved from principles established during wartime operations that demanded immediate solutions to seemingly impossible problems. The French resistance fighters who received Allied supplies during Christmas operations participated in liberation campaigns that restored freedom to their homeland within months. Many continued military service in post-war French armed forces, carrying knowledge of modern weapons, communications, and tactical procedures that helped rebuild their nation's defensive capabilities. Some established civilian careers that applied technical skills learned during wartime resistance operations. Radio expertise, developed through necessity during German occupation, translated into opportunities in France's post-war electronics industry. Mechanical knowledge gained through maintaining and operating Allied equipment provided foundations for careers in manufacturing and engineering that contributed to European reconstruction. The German intelligence analysts who failed to anticipate Allied capabilities demonstrated during Operation Christmas Box faced professional consequences that reflected Wehrmacht frustration with technical intelligence failures. Several officers transferred to less critical assignments after their assessments proved dramatically incorrect. higher-ranking commanders began questioning intelligence reports that underestimated American technological capabilities in other operational areas. Luftwaffe technical specialists, provided with fragmentary information about Allied electronic navigation systems, attempted to develop countermeasures that could disrupt precision operations similar to Christmas box. These efforts, hampered by shortages of electronic components and qualified technical personnel, achieved limited success before Germany's surrender-ended research programs. The broader lessons of technological innovation under combat pressure influenced American defense policy throughout the Cold War era. Military leaders, recognizing that technological superiority provided decisive advantages over potential adversaries, maintained research and development programs that continued advancing electronic systems, precision manufacturing, and operational coordination capabilities. Universities and defense contractors, building on wartime collaboration experiences, established permanent relationships that accelerated peacetime technology development. The integration of academic research with industrial manufacturing, proven effective during wartime emergency conditions, became standard practice for addressing complex engineering challenges that required rapid solutions. The success of Operation Christmas Box demonstrated that American technological and industrial capabilities, properly applied with determination and coordination, could overcome obstacles that appeared insurmountable. This lesson, learned through combat experience that tested systems and personnel to their absolute limits, provided confidence that American innovation could meet whatever challenges future conflicts might present. As the decades passed and military records were declassified, historians began recognizing Operation Christmas Box as a pivotal moment in the evolution of precision military operations. The integration of electronic navigation, tactical coordination, and industrial manufacturing demonstrated during Christmas 1944 established principles that influenced military technology development through the space age and beyond. Today, precision-guided munitions, satellite navigation systems, and real-time tactical coordination capabilities trace their conceptual origins to innovations proven during wartime operations like the Christmas mission. The same determination to overcome impossible odds through technological excellence continues driving military innovation that maintains American technological leadership in an increasingly complex global security environment. The legacy of those men who flew into alpine darkness on Christmas Eve 1944 extends far beyond immediate tactical success. They demonstrated that courage combined with technological innovation could achieve results that seemed impossible under conventional analysis. Their example continues inspiring military and civilian personnel who face technological challenges that demand immediate solutions regardless of apparent limitations. Can we truly comprehend the weight of responsibility carried by those air crews, knowing that hundreds of lives depended on their precision and determination? Their success reminds us that technological advancement serves meaningless purposes, unless applied by individuals willing to risk everything for principles greater than personal safety. The Christmas mission stands as testament to American industrial capacity, technological innovation, and individual courage combined in service of human freedom. Those who participated deserve our remembrance and respect for proving that impossible missions become possible when exceptional people apply exceptional technology with unwavering determination. If this story of technological triumph over impossible odds has moved you, please like this video and subscribe to ensure these remarkable accounts of American innovation and courage continue reaching audiences who appreciate the price of freedom. Share this story with others who value the combination of technical excellence and human courage that continues defending liberty around the world. These men dedicated their lives to preserving freedom. The least we can do is preserve their memory through our continued attention and respect.